You are now listening to an Armeo on the Brink. I'm Rosemary Armeo. Those of you who are my regular listeners know what I think about travel. I consider it, along with art and books and movies and granddaughters, one of the elemental joys of life, an essential that kind of distracts us from the yawning abyss that, to me, the world seems to be hurtling towards ever quicker. But my most recent travel took me to Southeast Asia, where it is impossible, I think, not to be constantly a reminder about the last time that America seemed hell-bent on imperialism and superpower bullying. The consequences are plain everywhere there. For example, I felt ancient in Vietnam and Cambodia because all of the people, many of the people, most of the people my age in those places were wiped out. Now, left their children and their grandchildren to do the rebuilding that you see everywhere. In Vietnam, we saw fish farms that had been constructed in the giant craters left by American bombs. And we tried crawling around in the claustrophobic underground tunnels in the jungle south of Saigon, the tiny little tunnels that supplied the Viet Cong, even when the mightiest military in the world was trying to flush them out and take control. You saw these awful places, just completely underground, filled with water and disease. People who lived there were starving because you can't be very big or you wouldn't fit in. They had malaria, they had stomach parasites, and they fought the entire time the Americans were there by using this mean. And you had to think, wow, they really deserve to win. And in Hanoi, the capital now of the United Vietnam, it's absolutely bustling with construction and enterprise and amazing art. Students at the Temple of Literature, appealing to Confucius for luck on exams, came clamoring to practice their English on us. And it made me regret that we had not been on their side. We should have been on the same side. But Cambodia is where my American guilt and regret took full flight. We massively bombed Cambodia half a century ago. We were trying to cut off again those North Vietnamese supply lines. The bombing didn't work. And worse, the violence just destabilized Cambodia, a tiny country, and contributed to the rise of the Khmer Rouge. Led by this school teacher turned Marxist dictator Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge, once in power, tried to turn back the clock to make Cambodia great again as a farming and agrarian culture. So that meant people were turned out of their homes and their jobs in the cities and sent into rice paddies where they were to grow crops for exports. They didn't get to eat it themselves. Many starved. Teachers, doctors, anyone who even wore glasses and smacked of intelligentsia were either executed outright or sent into the fields. Families were separated. Children were taught to love not their mothers, not their parents, not their families, but the state, and to obey blindly. Before the horror ended, 4 years later, 2.2 million, something like a third of the population, had been killed outright or been starved to death or died of disease. Not a single Cambodian family was untouched by death and terror. It's just a terrible story. And when I think about when reading news about war in Gaza or war in Ukraine and American arms and politicians all messed up again and all that turmoil. So this is all background. What I want you to hear now is an interview with Tek Leng. He is a 45-year-old Cambodian tour guide. He was born right after the killing fields period ended into a family of 7 children. They lost many relatives, almost lost their mother. It's an amazing story you'll hear. And he lives now by telling others, including his own 2 daughters, about that dark period, dark history, he calls it, of Cambodia. And he spends his time taking tourists through the killing fields, including a tree where the Khmer Rouge troops would bash in the heads of infants. It's now adorned with beads and bracelets. And he takes people to the grave where his mother narrowly escaped execution at the hands of a teenager with an automatic gun. because she stole rotten mangoes from the state. Starving, she tried to eat them. Tek is a soft-spoken Buddhist who loves his family and his culture and who aches for other people who have and are now today still suffering. You won't enjoy this, but I think you'll find it interesting and moving as I did. Thank you. You were born at the tail end of the killing fields, what you call the dark history of Cambodia. Yes. But your family went through it all. What did your mother and father do?
For living?
For a living before this all happened.
They were farmers.
They were farmers.
They were farmers. They were like in their teenager age as well, right? My mother was around 18 years old. By the time when the Khmer started to control the country, she was about 16, 17. By the fall of the Khmer, she's like 19 years old. So she had been separated from her mother, her father, her family, her brothers, sisters, to live in the women camp, they call it. So people had to be separated. So our basic right to live as a family tight had been, abused by the crazy Khmer Rouge people there.
Now your mother has an amazing story, which you shared with us.
Yes.
Taurus.
Yes.
And it happened when she was in the women's camp. Can I get you to tell that story, Tek?
Well, she was among those nearly 20 people, in the women camp. And one day, some of the women in the camp had picked up some kind of dirty, mango or
old mangoes.
Dirty fruit that rolling down on the ground with mud. It might be already decayed, spoiled. And some of these women, they were very hungry. Everyone was starving. So they could eat anything available there. But for some reason, some of these women had hidden those kind of fruit, like they found out while they were working in the field. And
the guards found out.
The guards find out they were just children, what we call brainwashed children. They were like 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, and they had this kind of AK-47 thing.
The Khmer Rouge believed that children could be, they were not polluted and they could be indoctrinated.
Right, but absolutely. First of all, they've been indoctrinated, they've been educated until they become very trusted children. So they use them to spy on people, they use them to control the crowds. And then for some reason, while they were working in the field, included my mother there, then all of them, 20 of them or 22 of them, as she can recall, the memory, had been arrested by children. And they've been tied up and they walked them into the woods. And it was a shock, when my mother found that the graves already prepared, just enough for the 20 people.
And so mass graves.
Yes, mass graves, already.
Yes. Guns
yes. And then when she found that she's gonna be killed, by these children, so she didn't hesitate. She protested right away with the children, tried to explain them that these women, because they're so hungry, they're so starving, they just wanted to have something to strengthen their energy so that they can work more hours in the farm there for the organization. So the use of the term organization means Angkar, A-N-G-K-A-R, what we called it, right? So Angkar is a very powerful word. When people heard the term Angkar, they become shaking and got scared and panic already. So they said that these women, not loyal to the Angkar, they stole the food of the Angkar, even though they just pick it from the dirty grounds there. So they didn't listen. But the more my mother protested against them, they explained them that we didn't pick it from the farm, we didn't took it from the trees at all, but, these women just pick it from the ground. So they didn't listen. But the more she said, the more she got beaten, the more she got kicked, by the hoe, by the stick, and she fall off many times there until she completely gone with the voice and everything. So then she said, I'm nothing else I can do. While the rest of the women, no one dare to say a word, because they already panicked, already terrified, and they're much younger than my mother. So then she said that as she can recall, this is would be the end of my life. And she prayed, just, mother is, there any miracle happen, I pray to you now, and you are still alive. So I pray to you as a mother and daughter. If there's something, as a miracle could happen, please save my life. So after she prayed to her mother, uh, it's like a miracle happened. There was a head man who in charge of these children. He rushed down from a little hilly ground from under one of the shady tree, a little distance away, but he overheard, what these women, my mother, explain and talk about, and try to explain to these children that we didn't steal anything. So please let us go. So this man took, action, and he said, I'm a responsible man now. So I commanded you to let these women go back and consider that as the first warning. If there's something happen again, we will not take any pity, but got them executed. This is what
So she got a chance. Oh my God.
So it's like, she's like a hero of 20 lives of the women there. They say lifesavers.
So she never thought about that for the rest of her life.
No.
She did not. She tried to avoid it.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Tried to avoid thinking about it.
Right.
But you don't. Your job, you work with Viking.
Yes.
And with other tour companies.
Yes.
You take Westerners through the killing fields.
Yes.
And there are many of them in this country now. Not all of them have been let go. Yes. So you relive the nightmare. How, why?
Well, because, by talking and sharing the story, so all of this horrible thing can be slowly healed, especially even though I didn't go through with that terrible situation as my elderly people or my family or my fellow Cambodian people, but by sharing everybody's story there to the world, I help them to spiritually healing their mind, their mortality as well.
It's very interesting. Do you see any connection between what's happening now, say in Ukraine or in Gaza, to what happened in your country?
Well, honestly, I can say it's just like they don't learn, the story that already happened, and they don't learn. So that's why it's keep going.
We talk to many Jewish people who say that was the Holocaust.
Right.
So we will always remember, never forget, never let it happen again.
Right.
Here we are.
For Cambodian people, we could end this kind of story because, we try to move on and we leave it one side, but we will never forget it, right? By sharing the story, we learn that was the experiences for us, and by keep telling the story to the new people, new generation, at least, we can do the precaution and make sure that this not happens again with our people, especially Cambodian, that very much, affected because of that.
The most amazing part of your story, when I heard it at first, Tek, was that there's the desire for revenge has been kind of stepped on.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it had been me and I heard these stories, I would want revenge and put them all in trial and hang them, all the people responsible. And the Cambodians did not go that way.
Practically at first, right after the fall of the killing field, people always wanted justice.
Sure.
We wanted those who had done something, on our family, or even got our family executed for some reason, because each Cambodian family, at least one person affected because of that terrible period of time. So we always wanted justice, to bring these people for justice. To be paid for.
To answer.
To answer why they can do such thing with the humankind. We are so lovely people there.
You are.
So we always wanted, but then we learned that the more we carry on, with our hatred, revenges, looking for each other. The more we just create more hatred, more revenges, more crimes, and there are no ends. So we took the what we call the win-win policies, right? So we move on together, and we just that's the only way we can heal ourselves. Because I once say in Buddhism about karma, we don't want to create our own thing, as a bad karma for the new generation. So, for example, if we found somebody there as the family of the Khmer Rouge or somebody who responsible for that story, and but then we do something wrong with that person, what happened? So the family of that person not happy with our family. So it will just go on. The continuation of hatred and revenges will find no ends at all. What goes wrong will comes wrong.
People in South Africa and Rwanda who have been through these purges and Holocaust are also wrestling with the same thing. The difference is that Cambodian is Buddhist. And a lot of the attitude of move on and comes from Buddhism. So a mini lesson in Buddhism here. What does Buddhism teach you about dealing with this dark history?
Actually, Buddhism has played the most important roles, to spiritually heal people from their, especially PTSD, right? So many people had carried on with them. We're talking some provinces of Cambodia, up to 50% of the population as a survivors. As a survivor, they carried on with their PTSD. Sickness, nightmare, terrified story at night. And then, this is all kind of thing. And by practicing the spiritual services or Buddhist therapy, by following the method of Buddhist therapy or healing process, meditation or insight meditation to purify their mind, to move on. And that is the best way. Even the Western therapists also agreed that. When they try to introduce into Cambodia with Western therapy, to treat people that's affected with that, it's not working as the Buddhist
as effectively as Buddhist
Buddhist therapy. So that's the way that we are here today, as a people, especially now those that retired from work, for example, they love to spend more time at the monastery so that they can practice their spiritual practices and to create all the goodness for themselves, for the family, and make the dedication to the loved one that lost during the terrible time.
Have told us that people don't have to be ordained monks. They will just go into a monastery and live as a monk for a while to sort of absorb some of this learning. Peace.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Did your mother ever find peace?
Yes.
She's still with us?
She's still with us. Yeah.
And she has granddaughters now. You have children. You have
she
two
got, as I remember, because she got too many children. I could not really remember, all my cousin names now. But by the way, as I can remember, it's about 10 or 12 of us, as my nephews and my nieces.
What do your young children, your girls are how old now? What do they know about this dark history?
My oldest daughter, she's turning to be 18 years old. She's in final year in high school, and she's preparing for a scholarship, somewhere else.
Fantastic.
So hopefully that she can make it through. Otherwise, there are always, some backup plan for anyway. So my youngest daughter, she's 12, and all of them are just, gorgeous girls and outstanding students and classes, top students in classes I met. And
congratulations.
Thank you. They learn very much about that. I even played them when they were a little younger with the movie documentary of the story that happened during.
Is that the Killing Fields, the movie? That's the movie we know.
Yeah, there are quite a couple of those documentary that explains about the killing field, that time. But I decided to play for her a movie called First They Killed My Father.
Oh yes, I've seen
it's
that.
Actually directed by American celebrity and a Cambodian adopted son.
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, that is available in American television.
Yes.
Many of my listeners will have heard this. We're speaking with a Cambodian tour guide and a historian by force, Tek Leng, and he's talking to us about the dark history of Cambodia. My last question is this. Have you ever thought about why did this happen in Cambodia? I mean, I've only spent a few weeks now and once before here. They are a lovely, enterprising, hardworking, soft-spoken, generous people. Why did this happen?
During those
dark
times. Well, it's just like it's so confusing situation, right? That especially when somebody became a very paranoid person, so who else around him can be the enemy, could be the wrong people. When we mark as the wrong people, we've been arrested, we've been captured and sent for the educational camp and also like detention center there. So
and for no reason. I mean, that's the thing that
nobody can really explain what really happened, but he's just greedy with powers, and he didn't want to lose what he granted from the last 2,000 years of Cambodian history, to be taken by somebody else. So that's why
Tek was talking about Pol Pot, who was the leader of the Khmer Rouge and the architect of a horrible, some people call it an auto-genocide. He killed his own people.
Right.
Never acknowledged it.
Never,
Even when he was and not exactly put on trial, but he was facing trial.
He never been brought for a trial, international trial in person. But when he lost his power in 1979, when he had been overthrown by another troop, so he been convicted, with life imprisonment by the newly reformed government, Vietnamese-backed support governments in those days. Between 1979 to 1989.
Right.
That's what we call that. And
but he never acknowledged it. He just said, everything I did for my country.
Absolutely. He never accepted what he done was the wrong thing. He always believed that what he did was the right thing for the country. So to me, he's, as a Cambodian person, he's just a crazy man.
Tek, I want to thank you for taking the time, and not just to do this interview, which I appreciate, but for the past few days when you've been showing us around your beautiful country.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, to have that opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.